All right, let's get real about AI transformation. We're going to cut through all the vague promises about efficiency and get right into a practical, no-nonsense guide for leaders. This is all about real-world results and, what you actually need to be doing today. So let's dive in.
To really set the stage, just listen to this. This isn't some consultant's theory, okay? This comes from a single person running 2,000 websites all by himself. That's the scale of what's possible now, and it's the reality check that frames our entire conversation.
Here's where so many businesses trip up right from the start. They talk about AI in terms of efficiency. But think about it. Efficiency is, it's a feeling, right? It's really hard to measure. The real driver, the thing you can actually see, is cost reduction. That's a hard number on your balance sheet. And that distinction, it's everything.
So, if the main goal is cost reduction, then AI's true purpose isn't just to make you a little bit better at what you do. No, it's to turn you into an attacker. It's all about using those lower costs to get cheaper and faster than everybody else in your space.
This right here, this is the first principal question every single leader needs to be asking themselves. Just forget all the noise for a second. What are the actual consequences if you do nothing? If your competitor gets faster and cheaper and you don't, where does that put you next quarter? Honestly, that thought should probably make you a little uncomfortable. And that feeling, that's your motivation to act.
So you see, AI transformation isn't a defensive move. It's about fundamentally changing your cost structure so you can make strategic plays that your competition simply cannot afford to counter. You can drop prices, you can enter new markets, you can absorb shocks they can't. That's the real power here.
Okay, so how do you start? The typical corporate playbook says, let's do a massive company-wide overhaul. Well, the argument here is that's exactly the wrong approach. Your AI transformation should start like a surgical strike, precise, targeted, and laser-focused on the highest possible return on investment.
This slide lays out the point perfectly. It's the tale of two bosses. You've got Boss A, who sees one high-cost position and decides to spend a fortune, 300 grand, to automate it. Then you have Boss B, who looks at the total cost of several lower-wage, high-repetition jobs and makes a much smaller, smarter investment. And believe me, their results are worlds apart.
For Boss A, the math is just brutal. Spending $300,000 to save $100,000 a year, that means it's going to take a full 3 years just to break even. For the first 2 years, this big AI project is actually a net loss for the company. It's a huge, slow, and really expensive bet.
Now look at Boss B. By spending just $100,000 to save over $126,000 a year, the investment pays for itself in under 10 months. From that point on, it's just pure savings hitting the bottom line. This is the surgical strike. It's not about tackling the flashiest problem, it's about finding the one with the fastest, highest return.
So where do you find these golden opportunities? Well, as you can see, you're looking for roles that have super high repetition and a pretty low need for creativity. But the real key is to look for a high aggregate human cost, not necessarily a high individual salary. Your prime targets are things like data entry, order takers, and standardized customer service roles.
Now, while you're focused on making these changes inside your company, a completely new threat is popping up on the outside. We're talking about a whole new business model, a new species of competitor that's basically born from this new AI-driven cost structure.
They're called thin shell companies, and the concept is pretty wild. The layer of human employees is incredibly thin. We're talking maybe a handful of people. But underneath them is this massive, dense infrastructure of AI agents and automation doing all the heavy lifting. This setup lets a tiny team do what used to take hundreds of employees.
And look, this is not some sci-fi prediction. It is happening right now. Just check out this data from the US Census Bureau. One-person companies have exploded from less than 24% of all new businesses in 2019 to over 36% today. And these aren't just freelancers. These are scalable businesses being built on AI.
The advantages are just staggering. A team of less than 10 people with profit margins hitting up to 80%, they can go from an idea to being live in the market in a matter of days or weeks, not months or years. This isn't just a more efficient company, it's a completely different animal.
So this brings us to a really tough question that every business leader needs to think about. Could a single AI tool, maybe one that's offered for free, completely wipe out your core business? Because that's the kind of vulnerability that these thin shell companies are built to exploit.
Okay, we've laid out the problem, we've talked about the strategy, and we've identified the threat. Now for the solution. This is the pragmatic, step-by-step checklist for how you can navigate your own AI transformation based on everything we just covered. So here's the sequence. 1. Start with your generic needs: text generation, data analysis, customer service bots. 2. Find that highest ROI cut. Remember Boss B, right? Focus on cost, not fancy tech. 3. Form a small, agile AI task force that can build prototypes fast. 4. Get your internal knowledge organized. Your proprietary data is your only real defense against thin shell companies. And 5, and this one is absolutely non-negotiable, the leader, the boss, must understand AI's capabilities or at least have a trusted advisor who really truly does.
And one absolutely critical warning here. Security has to be a day one priority. Things like prompt injection attacks, where someone can basically hijack your AI, along with risks from your suppliers and data compliance laws. These are not problems you fix later on. They have to be built in from the very beginning, or they can completely derail your entire effort overnight.
And finally, while that term efficiency can feel a bit fuzzy, the ROI in some areas is now crystal clear. This McKinsey data shows AI in marketing driving a 22% jump in ROI and boosting launch speeds by a massive 75%. These are hard, measurable numbers. This is where cost reduction and efficiency finally come together. And really, it all comes down to this. The AI models, they're just tools. Yeah, they're powerful weapons, and they're available to pretty much everyone now. But the tool itself isn't the advantage. The real advantage is having someone who knows how to shoot and, more importantly, has the wisdom to know where to aim. That is the true challenge of transformation.